All right, well, let's get started. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So how many of y'all have attended one of my sessions before? No, a couple of you have. 3 out of 4, so that's good. I don't have to go through the whole intro. I'll go through a short one. Uh, my name is Stephanie McShane. I'm the director at Maxim Consulting Group. Our group is exclusively focused on the construction space. All of our consultants are ex-operations folks that have come together to bring content. My specialty is education and training within the firm. I also run peer groups for Maxim as well. My background's in electrical construction, from an electrician in the field to a corporate executive and everything in between. So I've been a consultant for 13 years now. So I'm kind of a blessed because I live in Montgomery, Texas. So I didn't have to get on an airplane to be here today. So that makes me really happy. And I got to sleep in my own bed last night. So that was even better because that doesn't happen very often. So it's kind of nice to be here at home. We're going to talk about enabling success today. And we're going to talk about that gap that exists between the field and the office, because we know it does exist. What do y'all think causes that gap between those parties, between the field and the office? That kind of us versus them thing that tends to happen. What causes that, do y'all think? Okay, I'm not funny enough for this to be a monologue, although I try, but I don't think I'm funny enough to be the only person talking. Okay, true statement, the knowledge that they don't have. What else? We're almost seen as adversaries at times. There are some organizations where we're kind of adversarial, the field and the office, and it's a little disconcerting because, you know, the company's success is tied up in both, right? Operations has to be successful, field operations has to be successful, but those folks are not always singing the same tune, right? And walking down hand in hand, kumbaya, right? That doesn't always happen. Nor does communication happen as well as it should. So when I think about operations in the office and operations in the field and the amount of information they have to transfer for both of those parties to be successful, we can't leverage hope to make sure that that happens. So what I like to talk about in this session is, what do we have put in place that makes sure that communication's happening so that we're heading off issues in the field?
So I've filled both spots at two different times, right?
Yep.
And I know that when I'm sitting in the office, I lose track of how it feels in the field.
Absolutely.
And if you don't know how it feels in the field, how can you communicate correctly?
Correct. And I'll tell you, I mean, as a consultant, and I'll just put this up there so you can see it, but as a consultant, when I go in and do assessments of companies, and I do interviews, and we do job performance analysis, data analysis, financial analysis to see how y'all perform, when I look at the challenges of every construction company, lack of communication is number 1 or 2 in every single assessment I have ever done in 13 years. Now, whether or not that's true or not doesn't matter. What matters is that's their perception, right? And we hear that from both the office and the field, lack of communication, lack of communication. And so today's session's a lot more about how do we align that vision and make sure that people are talking at the right time, because you're absolutely correct. The longer we're out of the field, the more we lose touch with how that work is done. True statement, we forget. Like, I'm an old electrician. I could not effectively or productively do that work to save my life anymore. I shared in the class yesterday, I built a horse barn almost 5 years ago. There is no power in the horse barn. There's no light. There's no receptacles. There's no nothing in the horse barn. Why? Because I am as slow as hell at that work anymore, because I don't do it. I haven't had a tool in my hand to do that kind of work in, I'm not going to say how many years, but it's been a long time since I've done that. Told my husband I have to hire somebody to do it. He's like, God help that poor soul. I'm like, that is not nice to say, right? But you're right. The further away from the work we get, the harder that communication is, because we don't know how to communicate with them because we're not doing that work anymore. So let's talk about aligned vision for a second. Instead of the us versus them, how do we break that down? When I think about successful construction companies, and I've worked with companies that are $9 million a year, I've worked with companies that are $1.6 billion a year and everything in between. And it really doesn't matter what size that company is. Those highly successful companies who are enduring and who are very predictably profitable year over year, these are the 4 things that they have in common. First and foremost, they have the right people on their staff. I would rather hire someone who's trainable than someone who has a lot of skill that is toxic, right? Those bad hires, how much damage do those bad hires do? And we've all seen them in the last few years, right, as a lot of people have moved around. in our industry. We hire the right people. We create a culture that people want to be a part of, both the field and the office. What kind of culture are we creating? Do people want to come to work that day? Or are they dreading walking in the door? I'm going to give you an example of that culture piece. I was in operations at the time. I had a division manager and loved him dearly. God bless him, he's gone now. But he was very Jekyll and Hyde. And I'm pretty sure there were some issues there because he was either really high, happy, everything's great, or he was down here and he hated everybody and everything. And there was really no in between. But what that created for all of us that worked for him was an entity of, oh my God, what are we going to get today? Is it going to be this person or is it going to be this person? And because we were a small branch at that time, his foreman would come in at the end of the day and they'd come in the back hallway, and they'd stop at my office door first, wouldn't say a word. They would just get my attention. And I would tell them, literally, hey, to go talk to him today or get the hell out of here. That's culture. True statement? That's culture. And that created an environment that people didn't want to be a part of because it was unpredictable. What they were going to get going to work every day was unpredictable. They didn't like that. Because of that, we had tremendous turnover issues. Right? I don't get to do it as much anymore. I used to do a lot of executive coaching, and I loved that. And I had a CEO call me from the parking lot of his company. And it's early. I'm on the West Coast. He's on the East Coast. And he calls. And my cell phone rings. It's like 4 a.m., right? 3 or 4 a.m. Pacific time. And he's on the East Coast. I'm like, why are you calling me? Is everything okay? He's like, no. I'm like, oh, geez, what's happening? And he told me there was some stuff going on. And he was in a really bad mood. And I'm like, okay. So why are you calling me? He goes, because you told me I'm not allowed to walk in my office if I'm pissed off at the world. I'm like, well, that's good. I'm glad you're calling me to say that. I go, where are you? He goes, I'm in the parking lot. I'm like, oh, well done. You don't walk in with that face on right now. That's the culture piece. He knew he had to hit the reset button before he walked in. Because whatever he walked in with that day as a CEO was going to what? It was going to spread like wildfire through that organization that day. So culture is all of us, no matter what level in the organization. Culture is all of us. Financial aptitude is what I talked about yesterday. Do we have the financial aptitude at the right levels in our organization to drive success? I mentioned in the cash flow session yesterday how low our level of financial training is with the people, meaning at the project management level, who actually drive money. The training is not great in our industry, and I can say that with confidence because I do that training all across the US and Canada, and I see what levels your PMs are walking in with. It's a little bit scary. They don't understand how their project financials or their cash or their billings or their forecasts roll from their job onto the corporate WIP statements. They have no idea how those two things are connected, much less how to use billings and schedule of values and change order management well to make sure that we stay profitable. A lot of us are using hope, and that's a little bit terrifying for somebody like me. And then finally, discipline. Do we have one way to do the important functions in our companies? What's job startup look like? What's pre-construction planning look like? What's contract review look like? What's purchasing look like? Right? What does production tracking look like? What does forecasting look like? Right? We shouldn't have 10 people doing it 10 different ways. We should have one, but we should discover what that one is, then document and train everybody to that so we know, instead of hoping people get it right. But this is what I see in companies that are consistently profitable, that are predictably profitable. This is what we see. Let's talk about us versus them for a second. Field versus the office. Now, folks, I'm a union electrician by trade. You can well imagine we had a little us versus them happening. Can you imagine? Little us versus them, office versus the field, management versus labor. So I grew up on that side of the world. We had a lot of lack of trust, lack of discipline, lack of process, lack of role definition. If I asked 3 foremen what their job responsibilities were, I got 3 completely different lists of things, which I shouldn't. Right? So we had all of these lacks, and what it caused was all of this. Impatience, anger, confusion, false starts, lack of accountability. Do we have an issue with accountability in construction? Just a smidge. Just a smidge, right? And we have that. Usually when we have lack of accountability, we have a problem over here that's causing it. So us versus them, the root causes, when I ask that why question 3 times, if I go back, if I'm like, okay, so we have impatience or anger, so why? Well, because of this. Well, why? Well, because of this. Well, why? And if I ask that why 3 times, it ends up here. What's causing that problem, first and foremost, is ego. We have egos in construction. We're all control freaks or we wouldn't be here. True? Like, you wouldn't ever choose construction operations if you weren't a bit of a control freak. There's nothing wrong with that. But we have ego, or we have loyalty to one side. I'm labor or I'm management. Never the two shall meet, right? When you're in those roles. Leverage to one side or loyalty to one side. Status, greed, or control. It's usually one of these 5 things that drives it, the root cause of driving those kind of cultural challenges that we have, or that us versus them that we've got going on. How about collaboration or synergy within the company? So say we were going to make that thing. I showed my husband this picture. He goes, oh, that's cool. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not. What is wrong with that? By the way, it's not cool. Who would ever carry that thing? It's chaos. Holy crap. How could you ever find anything in that? So if we were going to produce that, if we were going to manufacture that thing, who should we have talked to first? Y'all need more coffee, because I can't be the only one this crazy this morning. I'm so not a morning person. The person who's going to use it. That would make sense, right? So when we're talking about field versus the office, shouldn't we be talking to the field about what they need to be successful, and then figuring out how to drive that through the organization to make sure that they have tools, information, material, manpower, when they need it, how they need it, where they need it. But that takes communication that we already talked about as a problem. Right? So how do we get standards behind that communication so that we don't drop that ball? But this is crazy. Overcomplication does not equal success. Do we make things complicated in construction? Yeah, I think we overcomplicate stuff. How about how many of you guys do larger jobs? All right, larger projects. Do you use cost codes to report time, whatever, too? So let me give you a horror story. And I know roofing doesn't use it as much as some others, but I had a client call and say, Steph, we got a problem. I said, okay, what's the problem? Field's all pissed off, office is all pissed off. And I'm like, what's the issue? They said, well, we're $25 million in the red on a project and we don't know where the bottom is. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? We've lost $25 million on a job so far and we don't know how much more we're going to lose. I'm like, holy cow, right? And I know this is civil GC. I used to do work for him as a sub, so it was very awkward to have this conversation because I know them well. So we flew out, and my first thing is to look at how is it bid, how is it budgeted, how are we reporting to this thing to find out what is happening. They were trying to track progress on one job. They broke that job down to 4,900 cost codes on a job. And they were trying to track progress to that. So what do you think was happening? Nobody had any idea how that job was performing until it was too late. Why? Because we made it so complicated that the field guys couldn't understand what the hell they were supposed to be doing, much less how they were supposed to be reporting time and quantity installed. They had no idea. This job was like 63% complete when they called us, and they had already lost $25 million. That's a huge problem. Overcomplication never equals success. So let's talk about the definition of success. Your clients. Is it fair to say, and you might as well add safer in there, we used to tell clients, those of us with gray hair in the room will remember this, better, faster, cheaper, pick 2. Do you guys remember that? Us with gray hair? Better, faster, cheaper, pick 2. You can get it better and faster, but it's going to cost you. Right? Now what do they want? They want them all, and they want it every time. Better, faster, cheaper, safer. Can you deliver that predictably every time and still make money? That's a problem, yeah? That's a huge issue for us. So we have clients that we have to manage. We have internal clients and we have external clients. This is enabling success. Would you guys agree there's a lot of internal clients, meaning people who work within our walls of our company? Those are our internal clients. External clients are our customers that pay our bills. Here's the issue that I see, at least from my consulting side of the world. Do we treat our internal clients any differently than our external clients? Yes. Should we? No. All of these people, and I don't know your workflows because obviously I don't know your companies really well, but I will tell you this, there's a hell of a lot of people before the field operations that have something to do with whether or not these folks are successful. Do you guys agree with that? There are people within the organization that have work steps to do so that these folks can install work without delay and without problem. So we shouldn't be treating these groups of folks any differently. Have you guys ever seen one group get really pissed at the other? Project management versus field operations, purchasing versus project management, whatever. They get real pissed at each other. Why? Because they're not communicating and working in synergy well, so they get mad at each other. Now not only do we have an operational problem, we got a cultural problem to fix. Do you know how much money consultants make fixing culture? Yes, we fix business process too, but let me tell you, we make twice as much money fixing effed up culture. Because it takes longer. Why? Because as soon as trust is broken, it takes a very long time to repair. And if that's happening within our walls, we got a problem that we got to address. So how do we drive that? Whether it's internal clients or external clients, how do we drive that success? How do we make sure that we can do business together effectively, whether it's internal clients or external? This is the number one. Do we trust each other? Let me give you an example. I still see and interact with construction organizations that tell me that they do not share labor information with the field. Oh yeah, we don't tell them how many hours are in that job, Steph. I'm like, why? Well, if that job has 5,000 hours in it, we tell them there's 5,000 hours and they're going to spend 5,000 hours. I go, that's a cultural problem. You got a lack of trust. Why don't you trust them to know that? If they know you don't trust them, how engaged are they going to be in the outcome? They could give a damn how successful the company is. Why? Because they know you don't trust them. That's number one. We got to get over that hurdle first. Or, here's another one. Well, and this will be the management side going, there's 5,000 hours in that job. But let's tell the field guys there's 4,500 hours. I said, so you're going to lie to them. Do y'all have an extra 10% of labor hours in these jobs that you're bidding? Probably not. And if you tell them that over and over again, basically they're going to lose every time. Every job in their mind, from their perspective, is going to run over in hours. Right? So they're going to fail every time in their minds. But you're doing the hide the peanut program by hiding 10% of those hours back there. How are they going to feel when they find out you lied to them? Or how are they going to feel when they lose every time? All we're doing is disengaging people. That's all we're doing. This is a people business. We think it's a construction industry. It's a people business. We have to figure out how to either motivate or not those people. Where's the money won or lost in construction? The risk enters through estimating, but where's the money gained or faded? It's been between the project management team and the field, yes? That's where it's won or lost. Discipline, doing things one way. Define processes so we have things for people to learn with, and I'll show you guys an example if you'd like. Role definition, involvement, incentives. Oh, let's talk about incentives for a second. There's a very big difference between a bonus and an incentive. What's a bonus? Now, don't get me wrong, bonuses aren't bad. The end of your fiscal year, we make some money, so we make a determination to take a little bit of that money and share it with people. There's nothing wrong with that. That feels good, does it not? Makes you feel good? Like you're sharing a little bit of that? I think that's great. But does that drive behavior year-round? No. Feels good for a period of time, especially if you're doing it at Christmas, because all of us tend to overspend at Christmas, right? Because, it's what we do, especially us parents. My girls are grown and they're still spoiled rotten, right? That feels good, but it doesn't drive behavior. Incentive compensation drives very specific behaviors. Let me give you an example. For a project manager, what would you incentivize? You don't incentivize a project manager on profit. Why? Because normally that PM had nothing to do with bidding that job. True statement? Unless you have the model of the seller-doer model where they bid it and then they go do it. Right? Some smaller organizations do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But larger organizations have an estimator, and then they have an execution or project execution team, which is PM, field, whatever. Well, if they had nothing to do with bid day margin, why would you incentivize on margin? They had nothing to do with it. They do, however, have something to do with margin gain or margin fade, yes? Bid day margin. And when that job turns out, did it get bigger or did it get smaller? That's what we want to talk about, because that's what they have influence on. You never base an incentive program on something that a person cannot control. Make sense? What would a field incentive be based on? What do we measure? Performance, productivity. Said differently, we give them a job that has 5,000 hours in it, right? And we're honest with them, hey, 5,000 hours. And they turn that out in 4,500 hours. Shouldn't we maybe take X many dollars per hour, put it into a pool, let the foreman, depending on the size of the crew, can only keep a certain percentage of that. Foreman has to come to you with a plan of how to distribute the rest. And we'll give them a list of people who were worked on the job and how many hours they worked. And the foreman comes back to us and says, here's how I want it allocated and why. Now, you got to put guardrails around that, though, right? It's not production at all costs, because what could happen if we did that? What might happen? They might, yeah, I'm good if they want it all the time, if they earn it, but what else? Too fast, so quality might go down just to get production. What else? Yeah, so they can't overspend the material side to gain it on the labor sides, right? So there's a guardrail. How about safety? True statement. You rush too much and get somebody hurt, you might as well throw away the profit on that job, yeah? Because we just did that whole thing likely for free. So don't get anybody hurt. What else? Don't lose and destroy all the tools that I gave you to do that job. So if somebody gets hurt, guess what pays the copay? That pot of money pays a percentage of that copay. You lose and break my tools, what pays for the fix or replacement of those tools? So what are we incentivizing? Get it done quickly. Quality has to be there. Customer relationship management, how about that? Does that matter? Because your field folks have a lot more contact with that customer than we do in general, right? Because they're out in front of them. So there's some guardrails we can put around that incentivize the exact behavior we want. Treat the customer well, where they want to hire us again. Do your work productively. Don't get anybody hurt. Don't sacrifice quality. Don't overspend materials to get there. You guys see where I'm going? Incentivize the exact behavior that you're looking for. Now we got something. Training. Folks, I will have a job forever doing training. As long as I want to work doing training for construction organizations. Because we don't, in general, do it real well. We don't train a lot. How about this, the example on training? How many of you have promoted somebody from a journey level guy to a foreman? Or gal, I shouldn't say guy, because I was one, right? You promote somebody from a worker bee to a lead or a foreman, right? What's that training plan look like? Because you know what mine was? Hey kid, we're going to let you run a job. And I was real excited. I'm like, yes, I finally get to run a job. I'm a foreman now. And the guy hands me plans and specs, right? And says, here's your plans and specs. Here's your timesheet. And here's who you call when you need stuff. That was it. That was it. That's all I got. Is there more to being a foreman than that? There's substantially more to being a foreman than that. How do you lead? How do you teach? How do you measure production? How do you increase engagement? How do you know when to hire and fire? How do you evaluate performance? There's a lot more to being a foreman than, hey, here you go. This is what I'm talking about with training. We did it really poorly. Do we even have a definition of success by position in the company? Do we even have a definition of what a foreman should be? We probably should. If we do all of these things, if we think about our organizations, how many of you guys have a growth mindset where you want to be bigger? Where you'd like to be bigger? Y'all better start looking about this right here. Because this is how you minimize risk when you grow. Is it true growing the top line is adding risk to your companies? Let me be perfectly honest. As a consultant, I'm a hell of a lot more concerned about you growing the bottom line than the top line. I give a shit about the top line. Sorry. I swear I'm an electrician. Sometimes it just flies out. I don't care about you growing the top line as much as I care about you consistently having a great bottom line first. That's right here. Then if you have a consistent, really good bottom line, then let's figure out how to scale. Let's figure out how to get bigger. But you got to mitigate that risk first, not afterwards. If you grow first without this, what are you doing? What are you putting your firm at risk of doing? Failing. Folks, in the construction industry for self-performing subcontractors, what's your net profit before tax? About, as an industry? 3.5 to 5.5% net profit before tax. Thank God we're all in Texas, true? Because I'm from California originally, right? You might as well take that number and cut it in half. Living in California, which is why I'm not there anymore, right? I live in Montgomery now and love it. Best move I ever made. But net profit before tax is extremely low, right? So unless you're performing really well, 6, 7, 8, 9% bottom line net profit before tax, do not grow the top line. Do not grow the top line until you have consistency on the bottom line. The only way you get consistency in the bottom line is right here. That's it. Now you guys are all consultants because that's exactly what we do. We worry about all of those things. Contractors are entrepreneurs. How many of you guys came from the field side of the world? You originated your career in the field, right? Or in an operational role somewhere, right? It's very difficult to learn those skills. Hell, I didn't know what those skills were. We had a consultant that came in and worked with us for 7 years and took us from a paper-driven nightmare. Guys, change order logs were in Excel. Yeah, and we were $70 million a year. Change order logs were in Excel. Time reporting was, holy shit, called in, emailed in, faxed in, like it was a mess. By the way, time reporting is my litmus test to see how screwed up companies are. If their time reporting is bad and that poor payroll person has to do the dance of the wild peacock on payroll day and fix a whole bunch of shit because it went sideways, I know that there's the likelihood that other stuff needs to be fixed also. Consistency, ease. What does the field want from operations? What do y'all think the field wants from operations? Smooth process. What else? Communication. What else? Teamwork. Respect. Steak dinners. Hey, speaking of that, let's talk about that for a second. There's a lot of goodwill bought in construction with food. Am I wrong? Like breakfast burritos in the morning, especially on a Monday when everybody's dragging ass getting to work. Does it not buy, hey guys, let's kick this thing in the ass this week? Or on a Wednesday because they've done really well Monday, Tuesday, hey guys, great job, just want to bring some coffee and some donuts or whatever. Or we do really well on a job, take the crew out for a steak dinner. Why? Because it matters. Let me be honest. We are really fast in construction at pointing out when things go sideways, true? We are really fast to chew somebody's butt when something goes wrong. True statement? I know I am. I know I was when I was in operations. Here's the issue. Are we just as fast at recognizing great performance? Most of us will say no. With the millennials and with the Gen Zs, you better get damn good at it. And you better give these kids, I say kids because everybody's freaking younger than me, which sucks. Right? The more I've been doing this, I'm like, dang it, I'm now like one of the oldest people in the room. This really sucks. We also now need to give these kids data, true? Because they all want data to run their jobs with. Not gut, not hope, none of these things. They want data. Why? Because they grew up with it. We have to give them that also. But the field wants a lot of things from operations, and ultimately what they want is the right information, the right tools, the right materials, and how about this, the right manpower. Isn't that what they want? So are we giving that to them consistently and in timely enough manner? And they need it when, how, and where, they say. We accomplish this by defined process, meaning how do we take a job from what I call order to cash, from the time a job becomes real until we get a retainage check, if it's a public job, or get paid if it's a private job. What are all those work steps that are in between? Who delivers each one of those work steps so we have complete clarity as how work gets done? That's what drives success. Effective structure. What's the org chart for? So we only any one of us only have a certain number of people reporting to us, right? When I go into a construction organization and I see what we call a rake, consultants call it a rake. You have somebody in charge, and then that person has like 15 direct reports. It's a rake. It looks like a rake. Is that an effective model of structure or leadership? No, it's not going to work. Because that person on top of the rake does not have the resources to mentor, teach, and bring along that many people. It's an ineffective model. Same thing in the field. If you have a large job, say you're doing a school that has multiple buildings and all this kind of stuff, and you're doing roofing on all of this, is it fair to say you might have more than one lead person running separate crews at the same time? You don't want one foreman doing that if there's enough people on that job. Why? Because that one foreman can't stay in front of that many people. Then you might have quality issues. I can't imagine worrying about quality issues as a roofer. I was terrified. When we first moved here, we had a pretty bad storm hit out in Montgomery and had a bunch of shingles fly off my roof. And it never leaked, but it was enough where insurance said, hey, you got to replace your roof. All right. I know nothing about roofs. I was terrified. My husband's like, why are you so worried? I'm like, because I don't know what quality looks like with roofing. Like, I don't have any idea what this looks like. He goes, do you need to know? I'm like, yes, I need to know. Like, they're up there working. I was terrified. I didn't know what this was supposed to look like, so I was communicating with the foreman and communicating with the project manager that was working. I'm like, are they doing a good job? Like, I don't know the hell I'm looking at. Caused all kinds of anxiety for me. By the way, that roof was expensive. Something about they didn't make my shingles anymore, and very high-end stuff, and so they had to rip it all off and start over again, and thank God for insurance. It was pricey. I was shocked. Of course, my roof has all these really steep peaks and all this crazy stuff going on. Amazing how expensive that was. But structure. They had a foreman, even on my little job, they had a foreman and they had guys working. Now, the foreman was working too. Why do you have to have a foreman, even on a small crew? Why do you have to have a foreman? What's their role?
Bring accountability.
Accountability, productivity. What's one of the biggest values a foreman brings to the table? How about teaching? Is that not one of the biggest values that foremen bring to the table, is teaching other folks how to do the job well? And how about this? Identifying your next round of foremen. Isn't that foreman's job? Hey, find some more guys like you and bring them up. How many of you guys are limited to your growth because of your field staff right now? You couldn't grow a whole lot faster because of the amount of people you have in the field. You don't have enough, especially field leadership. Great field leadership is normally a bottleneck for a lot of companies to grow. Why? Because we haven't incentivized or given our foremen kind of the orders or engage them in a conversation about, hey, we need 4 more guys just like you. Who are they and how are we going to develop them? We should. I have a client of mine in California, electrical contractor, and they have a general superintendent. It's a large company, but they have a general superintendent. And his job is to create multiple general foremen and superintendents every year. His job is to teach. His job is to make sure everybody follows standard practice. His job is to teach and make sure everybody's engaged in the outcome. And he produces a lot of foremen and general foremen and superintendents every year that are just like him. How much do you think those folks pay him? Now, I mean, in that region, a general superintendent probably makes, because it's California, general superintendent probably makes $125,000 to $150,000 a year. This guy with his incentives gets paid like $225,000 a year. Why? Because he's worth it. This company's been able to scale. When I first engaged with them, they were probably, I don't know, $80 million a year. They're almost $425 million a year. Why? 1, because we did all of the right things internally inside the office, but 2, we made sure that the field folks and that general superintendent were empowered and motivated and incentivized to grow people just like them. That lifted the lid off of how big and how powerful and how profitable they could be. But they had to have all these standards in place first to be able to drive it. Not hope everybody was talking and doing the same thing like they were supposed to. Strong leadership. Is that just at the top? Or is that everywhere? It's got to be everywhere. Led by the top, endorsed by the top, but leadership is everywhere. Down to the foreman. It's everywhere. Let's talk about how complex your operations are now. Those of us who have been in the industry for, I don't want to say the exact amount of years, more than 20 years. How's that? More than 20 years? Would you agree that construction was a lot less complex back then? It was easier, right? These big jobs, you guys remember a period of time where the general contractor, superintendent that was running the job actually knew what the hell flow looked like? Actually knew what needed to happen in what order for all the subs to be successful? Who's running those jobs now? Some kid out of college who's never had a tool on in his life and has no idea what order of operation is, what predecessors and successors are, has no idea how to help subs be successful. Now that GC's role, at least some of them that we interacted with in California, the GC's role is what? Wasn't to defend you as a sub anymore. Who are they taking care of now? It's not the subs. Who are they protecting the most? The owners. They're not your friend. True statement? Have you guys seen that? Where they're picking sides and the sides they're picking is the owner? Because, Steph, I got to defend the owner because I need that next job with them. So you're going to piss off every sub on this job and treat everybody like garbage? You think that's going to work for you? It's terrible. It's terrible. Well, let's look at the complexity. So when I look at construction operations, as a consultant, here's all the pieces of your business I would look at. If I came into your company tomorrow and did an assessment, these are all the pieces I would look at. We would start with strategy. I'd be working with an executive team and I would ask them, hey, how do your people feel about how they work here? What makes their job painful or hard? Where are the wins? What are we doing extremely well that we want to replicate? Right? That's an internal analysis of how we're currently doing business. External analysis is that whole thing, how do you want to grow? What are your strengths? What do you fall down at? How good are your competitors? Why are they so good? Why are they succeeding so much? What makes them different? Then I look at diversification selections. If you want to diversify as part of your growth strategy, how are you going to do it? Investment threshold. Say you want to go and start doing, heavy commercial roofing and you've never done it before. Well, we should probably figure out how much money you're willing to spend to go learn how to do that. Is it likely you're going to spend money first before you make money in something you've never done before? Probably. So what's the investment threshold? Competitive differentiators. If you're going to go play in that space, how are we going to go get work there? What are our differentiators that are going to make people want to give us that work? What does that look like? That's all part of the strategy. Then we have structure. We look at the organizational structure of the organization. Is it structured in a way that will support that strategy? Is it even there? Roles and responsibilities. Do we have defined roles and responsibilities? So people can learn how to do their jobs extremely well very quickly. Or hope. We might be using hope still. Organizational leadership development. That's HR, incentive compensation, knowledge management, meaning workflow. Do we have workflow for people to learn from? Internal communication. Is that a challenge or is that a plus? Management succession planning, ownership transitions. Please don't wait till the 11th hour to decide you want to retire and you have no plan. Normally it takes between 6 and 8 years for us to get that knocked down. Effectively, where your company will exist after you retire or sell. It is a long path. Do not underestimate how long that path is to do that. So we have strategy, we have structure, we have organizational leadership development. Then the pieces we look at are get work, meaning how do we bring work in the door? How do we execute work? Pre-construction planning, project management, purchasing, engineering and design, prefab, if you do any prefab, equipment, scheduling, service. Keep score, financial controls. What KPIs do we watch to see if jobs are doing well or not well? Billing and collections, forecasting, change order management, budgets, cost codes and types. And our GL. Is our GL structured in a way that tells us something about our company that's valuable? And then finally, we look at technology. What technology do you have deployed, and do they talk to each other? Or do we have disparate pieces of software that don't talk to each other that should? Here's the staggering part of all of this. So would you guys agree? This is pretty complex. There's a lot here. But here's what's even more concerning to someone like me. Here are all the pieces that the field uses, performs, or contributes to. It's a lot. It's a lot. So if we have any of that us versus them, if we have disengagement from the field side of the world, do you think it's affecting how our company is performing? Absolutely it is. All those little red dots are things that the field uses, contributes to, or performs. They play a hell of a lot bigger role. When I show field leaders this, what do you think their reaction to that is? Because I teach field leadership academies all over the country, which I love because I love field leaders because I used to be one many moons ago. They're shocked at that. Without them and without collaboration and partnership with them, we are really skating on thin ice when our margins are as small as they are. Tools. Let's talk about what tools that will enable success. What do we put in place that's repeatable, that's trainable, that can make sure that there's alignment between the field and the office so we never drop the ball, that we don't lose trust, right? Have you guys ever missed the release date on a piece of material and then the lead time came back and bit you in the ass because we didn't release it in time or we didn't order it in time? That should never happen. Unless it's a manufacturer delay, that should never happen. Why? Because when we get the job, we should have identified the lead time on that. We should have knocked that down. That ball should not be dropped. So pre-con, we get a job. By the way, how many of you guys have estimated in your careers, right? So you get a job, especially if there's a lot of competition. So it's 30 seconds of woohoo, followed by a half hour of what? Oh shit. True? You got 7 roofers on a bid and you get low, you're probably going to be a little puckered up for a minute to try to figure out why you got low. But the estimator is the only person who knows anything about that job at that period of time. Shouldn't the estimator, as part of their role, gather all that information that they learned during the bid and then give that information in a usable meeting format to the operations team that now has to go build that thing? Now, if it's a small job, that can be a very short period of time, and that turnover is true. If it's a larger, more complex job, we should spend time talking about that first. Not ready, fire, aim. We should ready, aim, fire. I'm a gun girl. That's why I moved to Texas from California, right? That should tell you a lot about me, moving from California to Texas. Estimating turnover, then we have a planning meeting where the ops team figures out how we actually want to build that job, in what packets, in what phases and areas and tasks, what kind of durations can we expect to be able to do that work. We plan how we're actually going to execute that work. Again, agenda and action items. Don't have meetings without agendas or action items. Don't bother. If there's a difference between how the estimator saw it and how we're actually going to go build it, shouldn't we recast the budget to be in alignment with how we're going to build that job? Said differently, if you're on a job that has 7 buildings worth of roofs, shouldn't each one of those buildings have its own budget? The answer is yes. Why? If you only had one labor cost code on say you did a school that had 7 buildings, and you only had one labor cost code for the entire job, maybe that thing's got, pick a number, 9,000 hours in it, 10,000 hours in it, and you only use one labor cost code. When are you going to find out when that job's going to run over in labor? When are you going to find out? Yeah, but when timeline-wise are you going to figure that out? When it's too late to do a damn thing about it? I don't know about y'all, but I am way too big of a control freak for that to happen. I am way too big of a control freak. And your field leaders can't fix a problem that they don't see either. So the budgets have to be in alignment with how we're going to do the work. Would you guys agree there's more than one work step to doing a roof also? Now, don't get me wrong. I don't know what those work steps are because all I'm good at is punching holes in other people's roofs. That's all I'm good at. Right? I'm an electrician. I just cut stuff up that I'm not supposed to. But whatever those work steps are, say there's 3 work steps for every roof, then shouldn't you have 3 cost codes for every roof? Hey, we're going to move in and do this work step on building A. Then we're going to stop, right, regroup, get new material. Then we're going to go do step number 2 on building A's roof. Then we're going to stop, regroup, get some stuff, go do work step 3. Isn't that 3 cost codes for building A? You really have to think through what your workflow is and break the work down in a way that makes sense for who? Not us in the field, not us in project management or accounting. It has to make sense to who? Guys in the field. So if they understand what those 3 work steps are to put a roof together, shouldn't that be how we're tracking that labor and stuff that makes sense for them? It's exactly how we should have our cost code structure. If you are going to recast your cost code structure, I'm going to tell you right now, do not do it without people from the field in that conversation. Because if you create that from the ivory tower, the ownership tower, and we drive that down, how hard is that going to be for y'all to implement? They're going to push back hard, right? Why? Because they didn't even play a role in casting what it was. Yet they're going to have to live with it. That's the dictatorship model, yes? We come down from on high, from the executive suites. Here's what we're going to do. Shit, we haven't done that work in how long? Consultants make a pile of money getting a team of people together that actually do the work and then casting what the process is. That's all we do. That's why we're successful. That's all we do. Now you guys don't need us. We get a group of people together to decide what it should look like, and then we do that thing. That's all. Here's an example of a handoff process so we get a job. And this is an example of we call it swim lane flowcharts. Simple. You'll see there's an estimator, there's a project manager, and there's a project executive. You could certainly add foreman to this. We get a new job. PM has to create some information, compile some information so that accounting can set the job up, yes? Because we got to get into the accounting system, set up the job. The exec or an accounting creates the job number. We put all the electronic bid documents together so we can share them with the team. Then we have a turnover meeting, that estimating turnover meeting. Then we take the estimating budget and we put that into the accounting software as the original budget. Whatever the estimator used becomes the original budget. Why? That is your starting point, yes? Don't ever screw with that original budget. Do not change that original budget unless you use an internal change order to do it. Do not change the original budget without using a change order. I'm okay with PMs moving money around or hours around in a job, but I want them to do it with clear shells, meaning an internal change. Why? Because I want to know why they did it. Hey, the estimator was going to do it this way and use these materials. We don't want to do that, so we're going to reallocate the budget and do it a little bit different. Great, okay. But move that money around with an internal change order so I can see it. What did you do and why? Then we go to a planning meeting where ops really figures out what we're going to do, and we get a bunch of action items together. The whole point of workflow like this is so that everybody in the operations team, from inside in the office to the field, knows exactly what work comes to them, what we do with it, how we do it, and where it goes. So for an example, if we were talking about, let me back up. If we have to export an estimating budget out of our estimating software, couldn't we put a little video snippet, a 2-minute video snippet link down here to show somebody how to do that? How easy would that be? How many of you guys have Teams or GoToMeeting or any of those things? All you have to do is open it, have somebody who does that work talk through while they're doing it, and GoToMeeting Teams will capture everything that's happening on the screen and your voice talking about it. Stop it, save it, name it, and put it somewhere, and then link it right here. Now you got something, yes? How freaking easy was that? Now you have something that's trainable, repeatable, transparent, and if you go hire a new PM, or if you hire a new estimator, or you hire a new whatever, field leader, you then have workflow for them to learn how to do their job in an excellent manner really quickly. Isn't that the golden bullet? Isn't that what we're all looking for? Enabling success to happen really quickly, not hope it does. I'm a huge fan of workflow. Why? Because I see that people, when they want to learn, if you hire someone and they're new to your firm, they want to know how to do business for you. We have to hand that to them. Not hire a new PM and, hey, just go sit with that dude over there for a couple weeks and watch what they do. How many of you guys got that? That is such BS. You're going to retain less than 10% of what you see. Don't get me wrong, we're not going to get rid of face-to-face mentoring or teaching, but you got to have something for them to fall back on. If we teach them how to do this handoff process and they don't do it for 2 weeks or a month, you better have something for them to fall back on, to look at, to see how to do that work, because they've forgotten by now. True statement? Change order management. Can you imagine? You should have lump sum change orders and T&M change orders, should you not? All flowed out, who does what, how do we do it, where's it go, how do we save it, how do you price it, how do you scope it? Shouldn't we have all that? Instead of hoping people do it okay. Change order management is probably the most popular course I teach across the U.S. and Canada right now, because we're getting our butts handed to us when it comes to change orders as subs. Short interval plans. So how many of you guys do a 1 week, 2 week, or 3 week look ahead? Do you guys do those? 1 week, 2 week, 3 week look aheads? Meaning the field tells us what they're doing. Why do we need to know that in the office? Scheduling. If you didn't do this, when do you find out the field guys need more material or more tools? When do you find this out? If you don't plan it, when do you find it out? At 2 p.m. today when they want it by 7 a.m. tomorrow? True statement? Do you guys have those field leaders that like call you every day in the afternoon and have a list of crap that they want by 7 a.m.? Gotta have it, Steph, gotta have it. If I don't have it by 7, we're going to be standing around waiting. I'm like, dude, how the hell long ago should you have known that you didn't have enough stuff to be working tomorrow? Right? But they don't. They don't plan. I had one foreman, and I'm very close to him. He's a good friend of mine, and I love him a lot more that we don't work together anymore. Because when he did work for me, I was ready to kill him half the time. We ended up having to move him from big construction jobs because he couldn't plan to service and special projects, where he was the one we called when something blew up. Because he was good at it. He was a MacGyver kind of guy, but he couldn't plan past the end of his nose, ever. So none of us on the big construction side of the world wanted this guy. So we ended up having to move him. Super talented, but he could not plan. Couldn't do it. Whether you use a 1 week, a 2 week, or 3 week, this is the field telling us what they need in enough time for us to solve that issue for them. Not this afternoon, for tomorrow. That doesn't work. Because if we don't plan, we're going to live right here. Do you guys like this game? Whack-a-mole? My husband says I have an unhealthy attachment to this game. Because we go to the fair and we see this game and I'm on it. It is so much fun to beat the crap out of the mole. Right? Mole pops up. Right? Kind of like a problem. Pops up in operations. Pops up. We run over there with the mallet. What do? Wham! And in the meantime, what else happens? Boop! Something else pops up over here. This is the fire drill, yes? And we feel like we live here an awful lot in operations. It's crazy. We shouldn't have to live here. How predictable should roofing operations be? Should be a little predictable as far as tools, information, material, manpower. Now, I'm not saying that the GCs can't schedule, because there's some GCs that can't plan their way out of a paper bag right now, and we totally get that, right? Which sucks for us and does impact us. But our operations should be fairly predictable. When I talk to your foreman, when I do interviews and we do assessments, and I talk to your foreman, and I ask those foremen who don't do a look ahead or don't give us enough notice when they need something, and I ask them why. What do you think they tell me? Oh, I don't have time to plan that. I'm like, of course you don't have time. You're living in a freaking shit show all day long, every day. Of course you don't have time. Or worse. Well, Steph, I used to turn in a look ahead, but nobody ever looked at it. Nobody ever reacted to it. We never had a conversation about it, so I didn't see any value in continuing. That's worse. That's a leadership failure. So if we ask them to do a plan and they share it with us and we don't talk about it, we don't react to it, that's a leadership failure. They'll stop doing it. We can't have any of that either. Now, whether it's the superintendent that reviews it or PM, I don't know who plays that role in your organization, but that's a leadership failure. So what a 3-week look ahead should be is something like this. Here's the activities, and it doesn't matter what the activities are. Here are the activities that foreman's crew is going to do this week. Right? What activities are they going to work on? How many people or hours are going to be spent on those activities per day? Right? So we can see what the man load is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They don't work Saturday, Sunday. So the field is telling us week 1, week 2, week 3 what they're going to be working on. Now, this is in accordance to whose schedule? This is according to the GC schedule, yes? What we're supposed to be working on according to their schedule. More importantly is this. So they're telling me what activities they're going to work on. Then they're going to tell me the source and the status of the materials they need to do that work. Where is it coming from? And in these examples, it's coming from the vendor. The vendor is going to deliver it. And the status. Now, the status in this example, R, is requisitioned, meaning the field foreman already asked for the material, but they don't have it yet. And if I see that they're going to start this on Monday, what am I going to do as a PM or a superintendent? They've asked for it, but they don't have it. What am I going to do? I'm going to go solve that problem, yes? Because my job as a PM or a superintendent, depending on who plays that role in your company, my job is to remove any obstacle that exists between that field leader and his plan. Because what do I want the field leader doing? Working. Making sure work's getting done. I don't want them chasing their tail. I'm going to go solve that. But here's the issue. I can't solve what I don't see. I can't read their minds. One of the other material status codes, D, is delivered, meaning they've already got it. So if I see D as a PM, I'm like, golden. They got what they need. I don't have to worry about it. They've got it. Here's a bad one right here. What do you think B stands for material status? Back order. That's a bad one, yeah? We've had a lot of that in the last couple of years, haven't we? Also, tools and equipment. Yes or no, I have the tools and equipment I need to do this part of the work. Yes or no? Now, if this is a 3-week look ahead, let's talk about this for a second. If we're starting a brand new job, say this is a 4-month job, we're starting this brand new job, is it safe to say we should at least plan the first 3 weeks of that work so that when we mobilize, we have exactly what we need to perform the first 3 weeks worth of work? Shouldn't take very long to do that. So we plan the first 3 weeks, and there's some lift to that. That's a pretty good pre-con plan, right? At least knock 3 weeks down. So now we start this job, and now we're into week 2. Is it true then that we really just move the plan from the original plan, now week 3 and week 2 just move up to week 1 and week 2, yes? And we might have a little tweak here and there, but basically it just moves up. So really, what are we only adding? 1 week. And how far in advance are we adding it? 3 weeks ahead of time. Here's the gold to this. We all can solve a lot of stuff in 3 weeks, yes? If we had 3 weeks worth of notice to solve something, whether it's tools, information, material, manpower, we can solve a lot of stuff in 3 weeks. We can solve next to nothing in a day without causing tremendous pain to a whole lot of people. This is one of the most important tools of collaboration communication that could possibly exist in a construction company. One of the easiest things to deploy, one of the worst deployed tools I've ever seen in construction. This is the field telling us what they need in enough time for the entire team to react to it. So why aren't we doing it? Now, if you're running a small job that's 2 weeks long, shouldn't you have a real short pre-con meeting to figure out tools, information, material for that entire 2 weeks, when and where and what equipment they need on what day, and get that thing planned out? POs written, material on hand, knock all of that down. Even on a small job, knock it all down. What I don't want to have happen is your foreman walking around the job saying, oh shit, yeah, I need another box of nail. Oh shit, yeah, I'm shooting you a text or an email. And then they walk to a different part of the job. Oh shit, yeah, I need some more scaffolding. Are you freaking kidding me? Because you know good and well they're going to tell you, I need it now. Right now, we have no time to solve. That is setting a team up to fail. Look-aheads or planning that small work out and spending 2 hours planning out a 2-week job sets up the team to be successful. Instead of us chasing our tails with that emergency, oh shoot, the sky is falling, and trying to react to that. It's not fair. It's not fair to the entire team. I'm a consultant, so there's a process. There's always a process. Why? Because I have to be able to teach, true? I got to be able to teach how to do this. So for instance, this is from a client of mine here in Houston, electrical client of mine here in Houston. The field foreman or superintendent does the 3-week look ahead. And they do it by Wednesday at noon for the following 3 weeks, not the week they're in, for the following 3 weeks. Wednesday at noon, that thing is due by the field, from the field. Thursday by 4 p.m., the PM is required to read the plan first, because what's the PM looking for? We're looking for the, oh, shoot, we don't have, or the mistakes, right? Don't have the material, don't have the manpower, don't have the equipment, something. Then Thursday by 4 p.m., the PM is required to pick up the phone after they've read the report, the look ahead. They're required to pick up the phone and call their foreman. What do you think we're going to talk about? The stuff they need. And if, by the way, if the PM fails to call the foreman by 4 p.m., what do you think I tell the foreman to do? Call them, hold them accountable, right? Because we got to get this done. We have to have this conversation. Must, not if, must have this conversation. So then we're going to make commitments to each other, right? Hey, I'm going to get this taken care of for you. Maybe the foreman's waiting for an RFI. Maybe they're waiting for a change order to be approved. We need to have that conversation. Why? Because the PM has to remove the obstacles that are in front of that field leader. What do you think that creates also internally? When we're having these consistent conversations, we're making commitments to each other, and we're meeting those commitments, what is that building? Trust, teamwork, culture. This is a process that should be in place in every construction company because it drives all of the good things that we want to have in a proactive manner. But I would say less than 10% of firms that I walk into do this, much less do it well. 1 out of 10, maybe. This is how we get rid of the us versus them. This is how we get rid of communication's a problem in this company. This is how we get rid of it, right here. If I'm a consultant, so we measure everything, okay? We measure everything. Why? Because we have to prove value to a customer, true? I have to prove that we're bringing value to the table. If I had whoever took requests in your shop for tools, information, material, or manpower, whoever those people are, and I had them take a piece of paper, and I had them make that table right there, right? And every time a call came in, if we gave less than 2 working days notice we need something, a tick mark would go here. If it was more than 2 working days notice, a tick mark would go here. Which one's going to be bigger? The unplanned's going to be bigger, yes? Which means the vast majority of the time, we're using hope as a strategy. We hope people have time to react at the 11th hour to get us what we need. Are you kidding me? It's the shit show. And when we measure it, because I'm a consultant, we measure everything, that's what we normally see. 70% or more of those calls coming in give less than 2 working days notice to get them something. Only 30% of the time are they giving us some notice, more than 2 days to react to it. Now, we just talked about the short interval plan a few minutes ago, that 3-week look ahead, 1 week, 2 week, whatever it is that y'all are going to use. This right here, terrifying to someone like me because I'm a consultant. This means that 70% of the time, we hope that the vendor happens to have exactly what we need sitting on the shelf waiting for us to call and the availability to bring it to us right now. Or it happens to be sitting in our shop waiting, a tool's sitting there waiting. Nobody else is using it. It's just sitting there waiting for us to call. Bullshit! You know that's not going to happen. We're using hope as a strategy if we're living here. Just the 3-week look-ahead process alone, whether it's 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, whatever makes the most sense for you all. Just this process alone, what do you think happens to these percentages? They flip. Now, I want you to think about something. How different would your projects be operationally, financially, and culturally if we could flip those percentages? Could your PMs do more work if they were less reactive? Could your field leaders run more effectively if they had more of what they need when they need it? Would their productivity go up? Guys, by the way, A 10%, approximately, a 10% increase in labor productivity over doubles your bottom line. Net profit before tax. Anybody interested in that? A 10% increase in labor productivity basically doubles the bottom line of your company. So how do we do that? It's right here. This is the lowest hanging fruit we possibly have in construction, is a look ahead, where the field tells us what they're doing and enough time for us to solve issues. It's right there. Now, are we ever going to get rid of the 30% of unplanned? No. Why? Like, shit happens, right? I mean, I hate to say it like that, but it's true. Stuff's going to happen, right? The electrician's going to cut a hole in your roof and you're going to have to fix it. I'm an electrician, so, you know, I'm only known for destroying roofs, not building them. Stuff's going to happen, or the GC is going to not plan well. And, oh, yeah, you can't do that yet. You're going to have to go figure out something else to do that's not ready yet. I'm like, well, why didn't you tell us that? Right? Stuff's going to happen. We get that. But if we're living here instead of here, right, where 70% of the time we have everything mapped out in front of these folks, do we then have time to react to this? Certainly a hell of a lot better. But if we're living here and then another emergency happens, aren't we just adding fuel to the chaos fire? And she gets bigger. The dumpster fire, by the way, in construction doesn't normally get better with time. True statement. Job starts out as a dumpster fire. It usually ends worse. Right? At least the look ahead allows us to have a conversation about what the field needs from their perspective so we can fill that need in enough time for the team to be successful filling the need, not hoping that we can get it done in a day or two. I don't like hope as a strategy because it's not predictable. It's not attainable, and it doesn't help us make money, to be honest. We're here to make money. There's nothing wrong with being a contractor who makes money. I just want to make more. I want y'all to make more. That's all. Simple request. I want you to make more. Process. Remember, Wednesday by noon, Thursday by 4. Right? Once we go through that plan, we both agree, I'm making a commitment as a project manager to solve any of those issues for them. Great. Then we go on and we execute plan. Then we report time, we report quantities, we get production reports. Everybody's happy. Everybody's happy. When's the last time you were truly happy in construction? This is a tough business, is it not? When I went from estimating to project management, if somebody would have been honest with me about what a large public works project manager actually did for a living, I would not have made that choice. That was a hard business to be in. We ran very large, we're a big union shop, we ran very large construction projects. And about 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 went to court. Very, very lawyer-driven industry in California on the big public works side. It sucked. It sucked. We don't need to have internal strife. We got enough stuff coming from the outside. We don't need to be doing this internally. We need to figure out how to create synergy internally. So if we have these production targets and we have synergy, oh, let me back up for a second. On your look ahead, is it true that when you guys bid work, you have production units in mind? How many hours is it going to take to install X amount of product? Isn't that how we bid work? That's how all of you guys bid work, yes? So when you set up your budgets, shouldn't your budgets have both hours and quantities in them? So for building A, right? So say one of your work steps is to put plywood on the roof before we can do anything else. We got to put plywood on the roof, right? So shouldn't we have square footage of plywood for that roof and how many hours that's going to take? That's how you bid work. Your budget should have both hours and quantities in them. And if your budgets have both hours and quantities in them, and a foreman tells me, hey, Steph, I'm going to do 2 people all week, 16 hours a day on that cost code. Couldn't I then use math to say, okay, so if you're going to do that, you need to get 901, in this case, linear feet of product installed with those 2 people to meet budget?
What if ours is a little bit different, where, we do a roof in a day,
Yep.
right? And, not every time it needs to have decking replacement.
Correct.
But we pay our general contractor a flat rate for that job,
So is it a sub or those actually your folks?
Sub, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sub, and we pay them a flat rate.
Yep.
So, they start at 6:30, they can end at 2 p.m. or
Yep.
they can end at 4:30 or
Yep.
5. So how do we?
You don't have to do
don't
this.
need to do that,
No,
right?
unless you have your own folks performing work. You don't have to do this. And frankly, it's a great business model. You have zero risk. You have a lump sum price, and you have zero risk. The only risk you have is making sure that they're representing your company and doing the quality work you want them to do, right? Because they're not you.
Like this with the project manager staying up on their roof, making sure that
Correct. Yep, that's correct. But if you don't self-perform work, you don't need production tracking. However, you do need a look ahead from your sub to tell you what they're going to be doing and when, or scheduling, right? Between you and them, you have to know exactly what jobs they're doing on what days. Let me give you an example of that exact thing. So I'm building a pool. God help me. By the way, it's full of muddy water right now because it's been raining. So I'm building a pool. Found a great pool guy, thank God, after interviewing and getting 11 quotes. Because, you know, I am who I am and I got to pick the right guy to do it. So I picked a guy. He doesn't really self-perform anything himself. He subs everything out. But this guy is on the job site every single day that there's a trade at my house. This guy is at my house. Why? It's his job and it's his reputation. True statement? Because my contract's with him. My contract's not with all these subs. Now, could I have been my own GC and hired my own subs? Yes, but no, I'm not going to do that. I don't have that kind of time. Could I have? Sure. Do I have contract language? Yeah, of course I do. I'm not going to do that. Are you kidding? Mainly because I don't know what quality looks like with all of those trades. I don't know what the hell good gunite looks like. I have no clue what good gunite looks like. I don't know, but that guy does. That's why I hired him, right? He doesn't have to do production tracking, but what he does have to do really well is scheduling. You guys are going to be shocked when I say this. This pool is going to be done less than 3 weeks start to finish. The whole pool. Gunite. 3 weeks. Less than 21 days start to finish. Do you think he has a scheduling game on point to get all that done with all of those trades? It's already gun-ited. It's already tiled. The coping's already done. They're doing flat work next. Electrical's done. Plumbing's done. They're doing flat work. Then they're going to come in and do pebble tech. Then they'll acid wash it and clean it. And then they'll fill. We're almost done. It's been less than 3 weeks start to finish. Yeah. Yeah. Not that you need a heater for, 90% of the time here, but we're also thinking about a chiller, which is bad, but it gets really freaking hot where we are, right? It gets hot, so we're thinking about a chiller also. But my point is this, it's still your name, right? So even though you don't do look-aheads, you probably should have some sort of flow as to how that job's going to go together with all of your subs, right?
Usually tells us if we're short on something, around 1:30.
Yep.
And that way it gives us 3 hours to go ahead and get all that stuff done to where we can get the product over there.
When should you know that?
When should we know that? When we order in material.
Yep. You don't want to you want to solve as little as possible at the 11th hour because it really kind of does set us up to fail. What if we can't get what they need before they leave? Then they're going to have to leave, go to another job, and then remobilize and come back. That's going to be a problem, even though it's not costing you money because it's a lump sum to that sub. It's your reputation. But what else is it? Waste. It's wasted time that you had to spend coordinating something that should have never happened to start with. And if you're spending time doing that, what are you not spending time doing? Making money and going to get the next one. Waste. We have a lot of waste inside our office, and we have a hell of a lot of waste out in the field. Both, but they're tied together. True? They're tied together. Time reporting. It's got to be accurate. It's got to be accurate, right? By the way, even if you sub, do you want to know how many hours these folks spend doing their tasks?
Yeah. We want to know this 40 square roof or 50 square roof, how long is it going to take you compared to another sub that we have?
Yep. Yeah, because why? There's going to be a difference in scheduling. And by the way, should there be a difference in price? Depending on how long they take to do a job. Yeah, there's going to be a difference in price. Do we need to know that if we're acting as a GC? Yeah, hell yeah, we need to know. Of course we need to know. So time reporting's got to be accurate. Quantity reporting. Now again, this is larger jobs, but you could do this on a smaller job. So for a sub, would you want to know how many hours they spent and how much product they installed? Because what would that give you? Wouldn't that basically give you a square foot price for their work? Wouldn't you want to know that for budgeting purposes? Wouldn't you want to know that? I would want to know that. For those of us who self-perform work, I also want to know when we're doing things out of sequence or unplanned. So in my larger jobs, we would have a 3-week look ahead on a job, and when they reported time to those cost codes and quantities, because we ask for quantities once a week, roofers normally report quantities daily. Roofing, sheetrock, and framing almost always report quantities daily. Why is that? Even on a big job, we report quantities daily for roofing. Because y'all show up on a job with a boatload of people and you are not there for very long. True statement? So if you don't track quantities daily, that job could get away from you in a week. Your production could tank in a week. You want hours and you want quantities daily on a large job. Roofers, framers, sheetrockers are all daily. Electrical, mechanical, plumbers, we do time daily, quantities weekly, because we're on the job for a lot longer duration than most of the other trades. But we do quantity reporting to tell us how productive or non we are, and then we start running reports to tell us where we were successful and where we failed. And you notice I have colors on here? So for instance, for this cost code down here, it doesn't matter what it is, we spent 90 hours, but we're only 85% done, but we should have only spent 55 hours. So if we should have only spent 55 hours, but we spent 90, do we have a problem? And if I'm a project manager, the question I'm going to ask is, did we cause that? Did the GC cause that? Did another trade cause that? If we caused that, I need to go find out what the hell happened to make sure it doesn't happen again. If somebody else caused that loss of productivity, what am I going to go ask for? Change order. True statement. Somebody else cost me 35 hours of my time of lost productivity, and it wasn't caused by me. Am I entitled to get paid for that? Yes. Yes. I'm not going to just donate to the cause because I'm a nice person. Our profit is what? 3.5, 5.5 points. You guys got to get really good at the change order game too. It is a game, by the way. You just have to be really well rehearsed at it and really good at it. But we run reports. Basically, it says in this total, this is a payroll week, we spent 296 hours. We should have only spent 196. Do you think this job is going well? We spent 100 hours this week more than we should have. Yeah. And we turn stuff colors because I want my foreman to see it, right? Because green is good, red is. Make this stuff bomb-proof, people. Make it as easy as you possibly can to see when there's an issue. When you do things like this, at what % complete do you think you're going to start seeing red? It's usually between 15 and 20% complete. You'll start to see a cost code fade if you're doing time and quantity reporting well. And if you see a cost code fading at 15 or 20% complete, what do you have time to do? Fix it. Find out what's causing it. But if you don't know until it's 80, 90% complete, are you not a project witness? You're not a project manager, you're a project witness. Why? Because it's too damn late to do anything about it. You have no time to react to that and get it fixed. Yes, sir.
People forget what happened.
Yes.
So if you don't get on it, they forgot. I forget.
Absolutely. But if we have this stuff in front of us every week, pretty simple, yeah? To be able to see it.
Well, yeah, we can go back to asking the right question.
Let me, I showed this to the class yesterday. Let me show you guys something really quick. I'm going to go off script for a second, because I can. Why not? Let's see. All right. There we go. Let's look at this for a second. I showed this to the class yesterday. I think it's kind of, I'm a pictures girl. I don't like tables full of data because I think it's unusable for most people. So here, for an example, this is building A, floor number 1, and these are my 8 cost codes that I have going on there. I don't care if you have 3. I don't care what it looks like. But I'm going to use cost code 400 for an example. Ceiling rough-in, it's right here. The yellow bar is my budgeted hours. My red bar is how many hours I've used so far. The green bar is how many hours I should have used because I know my percent complete on that item. And the purple bar is how many hours I'm going to spend when this cost code's over, given the current production rate of how that work's getting installed. All we need is a budget with hours and quantities, and all I need from the field is hours reported correctly and a percent complete or quantity installed. Now, if I'm a field leader, and I joked around about this in class yesterday, the learning curve for the field leader to know whether or not things are going well or not, you guys ready? It's really tough. You ready? Red bar bigger than green bar, bad. Green bar bigger than red bar, good. How hard is that? Don't hand people tables full of black and white numbers, especially our field leaders. What are they going to do with them? Right? They don't care. Guys, I am that field person. I like pictures because as a field leader or a project manager, how fast can I scan this and find out what's going well and isn't going well? More importantly, very early. Right? That cost code is 24% complete. I know at 24% complete, that thing is not going well. We're 200 hours behind on that cost code, and I know it at 24% complete. So either it's caused by somebody else, and I'm going to go ask for some money, or it's caused by us, and we're going to go jump in and fix that thing. But I can't fix it if I don't see it. The learning curve for a PM, if the purple bar is bigger than the yellow bar, it's bad. If the yellow bar is bigger than the purple bar, it's good. Why? Because that's the budget, and that's how many hours we're going to spend when that task is over. Pictures. You have to think about who needs to use this kind of data and translate it into a tool that's effective for them, not you, for them to use. I'm a fan of pictures because I think they're easy for anybody to interpret. By the way, would this span a language barrier also? Because a lot of us here in Texas, we have language barriers too, yeah? Would that span a language barrier? Yes. Pictures are one of the best things we can possibly do, right? Because there isn't any language barrier. We just have to show them what this means. Simple. Pictures are much easier to use than just tables full of data. All right. Sorry, I went off script, but I think it's of value, so. All right. Do your folks all do a daily project report? Whether it's a one-day job or a 6-month job, do they all do daily project reports? Should they? The daily project report, for those of us who have been down the path of mitigation and litigation, all that kind of crazy stuff, the daily project report from the field leader carries more weight than any document we could produce in the office. Why does it have so much credibility? There's one document. Why does it have so much credibility? Who's it done by? Guy in the field, yeah? Boots on the ground, closest to the work. And it's done how often? FYI, it's in the title. Right? But this document holds more credibility than anything we can manufacture in the office. And isn't it also our ability from far away to find out what happened on that job today without having to be there? Should these also have photos? Of course. Right? Photos, timestamp, this is a big deal. Opportunities for communication. We're talking about enabling success between the field and the office. We should be looking at that 3-week look ahead. Or daily, or 1 week. If you're only going to do a week-long job, that's okay too, but let's do it 1 week so we have it all knocked down and everybody understands the plan. Time and quantity reporting should be standardized. And electronic, hopefully. Y'all are using electronic format now to report time, I hope, if you're self-performing. Lots of decent platforms out there. Daily project reports have to be in real time. By the way, time reporting, quantity reporting, daily project reports, if you are using an electronic platform to capture that information, could you find out who is not doing it in time? If it's an electronic format, couldn't you have a report written that says, hey, show me any job, especially larger jobs, show me a job that had time reported for the last 3 days, but didn't have time reported today by 7 p.m. Then that would tell me who my offenders are, right? Either that job's over or the guy's just not doing his time daily. But we want time daily, yes, not weekly. And for you all in roofing, if you self-perform, I want quantities daily also. Because again, that job can get away from you all really, really quickly. Daily project reports, production reports. That little graph I just showed you. Are we ahead? Are we behind? And by how much? If we have budgets that have hours and quantities in them, and we report hours and quantities from the field, that graph is nothing. If you guys want that Excel, I hate Excel, but if you want that Excel, email me. I'll send that to you. I could give a damn. And then all you'd have to update once a week is what? Quantities installed, hours used, and then the graph self-populates. Simple. And if your folks are really not to the sophisticated part yet and they're going to struggle with that, just put quantities of 100 and have them use percent complete. Right? Instead of saying there's 750 square feet, just put a quantity of 100 in there and let them use percent complete to report progress. You're still at least going to get production data out of it. It's better than not having it. Because whether you're in the office and you need to see where the gains and fades are, or you're in the field and you need to see where we're winning or losing, both of those things take this same information to gather and put together. The last two pieces of creating synergy between the field and the office is an exit strategy. How well do we get off of a job? Even if it's a week-long job, aren't there things we have to do to get off the job correctly? What are those things? You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? What are the things we have to do to get off a job correctly? Clean up. Guys, there's a pile of shit in my backyard right now from these pool guys. And I'm hoping, see, look, I'm using hope as a strategy. I'm hoping that's all going to disappear when this pool build is over. They don't need to mess with me. The pool guy knows what I do for a living, so he's being very cautious, right?
So here's what I tell my guys too. I had guys break off, one go on his own.
Yeah.
So I was power behind him. I mean, I want to support him.
Yep.
He called me back later. He says, Rock, he says, I know that you've done well. What do you recommend me doing to be successful?
Yeah.
I says, arrive on time.
Yep.
Do your job well, and clean it before you go home.
Yep.
So if you do those three things, you'll have success.
Yeah.
So the problem was he couldn't consistently do that, so he's back.
Of course, because he failed.
Yeah, he failed.
Because more construction businesses fail than succeed. More construction businesses fail than survive. Right? You should have a prescribed version of how you do work so it's consistent all the time. Exit strategy is the same way. When we get close to the end of the job, shouldn't we hit the timeout button, identify everything in the office that has to happen, everything in the field that has to happen, create an action plan or a schedule or something, and then ride that thing like a pony till we're done? Because the last thing you want, especially on big work, who does bigger public work, right? The last thing you want is have that retention check strung out for 2 years because you didn't give them a warranty letter. We can't screw stuff like that up. That will kill your cash flow, right? So we should have a prescribed list of things from the field and the office that we have to do to close out a job so that we can effectively get off a job and leave a good impression with the owner who has the decision whether or not to hire us next time.
So you said yesterday that you need to go to the job like somebody else, like from the office.
Yeah.
Walk over the job with a client.
Absolutely.
Anything going to hold this thing up.
Absolutely.
That's before you try to close out a job.
Correct.
You know what to do.
Yeah. Better that than the 11th hour of, oh yeah, all this stuff needs to happen and you haven't done it yet, and now we're going to get strung out for months. How long is it taking you all to get a retainage check right now anyway on a commercial job? It ain't pretty. I have a client in Colorado right now that is 3 years out from getting a retainage check. That job's been over for 3 years. 10% of their contract has been held out for 3 years. Do you think they're actually made that money anymore? You think they're taking a cash flow hit and cost of capital hit by having that thing strung out that long? And I think their contract was $17.5 million. They've got $1.75 million sitting in retainage for 3 years.
So there's another angle that I've experienced. So if you're a subcontractor and you're under a GC and you constantly cover yourself in everything, I've learned they will not hold your retainage.
It depends on what your contract language says, but yes, in general, you can minimize that damage.
They will not pay you until you get paid, right?
Yeah, pay when paid.
They know me well enough. They know who I am.
Yeah.
They know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And other subs won't get their money, but guess what? So here's the deal. When you pull up and you do your product,
Absolutely.
totally cover yourself. Never cost nobody else. Make sure you do your job. It's amazing what you'll land up with.
Because you bring value. You're bringing value that other people don't bring, and therefore you get preferential treatment. All of us want to be in that spot, right? I ran a very large union shop in a very non-union market. About the most non-union market you could possibly be in. How did we grow from 7 million to 35 million in one office? By bringing value. That was it. We were the most expensive electrical contractor in town. By far, the most expensive contractor in town. How did we grow? Because we brought stuff to the table that made everybody's lives easier. That was it. Very simple. Lastly is lessons learned, right? Lessons learned. How do we take the knowledge that we gather on these jobs, document it, and then share it with other people? One of the most expensive mistakes everybody in this room can make is allowing multiple crews of people to make the same error over and over and over and over again. Because we don't share that tribal knowledge. We don't sit there and have a timeout. I bet you all have some foreman meetings once in a while or some team meetings once in a while. Shouldn't we let some guys that just closed a job out share what they learned, what they would do the same, what they would do differently? Because we all talk about some stuff in the, God, I'm trying to not swear. We all talk about some things in those meetings that probably don't bring a lot of value. I can't think of anything that brings more value than allowing a closed job, that PM and that foreman, to present that job to the group. And what they did well, what they didn't do well, what they would do the same, what they would do differently in hindsight. How was the interaction with the customer? All right, let's talk about it. Absolutely. But no, we talk about stuff in those meetings that, frankly, doesn't bring as much value. That's a cleaned up version of what I'm thinking in my head. Doesn't bring as much value as talking about what happens on the jobs. Lastly, how do we make that happen? That was good, but this is even better. How do we make all of this happen? How do we make that kumbaya between the field and the office happen? If the crew is the end result or the end user of the product, then shouldn't they have input as to the processes that feed them the product? Tools, information, material, manpower. If they're the user of the product, they should have a hand in casting what that workflow should be. When we look at clients, how many of you guys like to use certain products over others? Right? A lot of us do, yeah? So if you do a lot of private work, shouldn't you then direct most of your work to those products that you like to use? So you have product standards, assembly standards. If you have design or manufacturing standards, kitting standards, how do we put tools, information, material in a kit and then deliver that kit to the job site so no one walks around looking for anything? Because walking around looking for something is what, in my mind? It's waste. We should have done our job kitting all of that information and then dropping it when they need it, how they need it, where they need it. And when would you know they need the kit? Their 3-week look ahead would tell you exactly what kit they want and when. Field installation standards, and then tying all that back to estimating standards. Shouldn't we estimate work exactly the way we execute work? In the same parts and pieces that we want to break those budgets into. We should tie all of those together. Can you imagine how much more efficient your jobs would be if all of those different silos in your company were speaking the same language all the time? We didn't have to translate information from silo to silo? That'd be pretty badass, in my opinion. We went through this transition 20 plus years ago as an electrical contractor. We were paper-driven. Everybody does it their own way. 5 offices, everybody did it their own way. Even within the offices did it their own way. Went through this entire transformation process. I've gone through it from your side of the table. It's not easy. It's well worth it. And this is part of what will allow your companies to transcend to the next generation or to the next series of leadership. Not hope. Not everybody does it their own way and we hope it exists after we leave or we sell it. That's it. Questions? Comments? If anybody wants a copy of that labor productivity graph I showed you, feel free to email me. I'm more than happy to share it with you. If you're interested in a pre-construction workbook, I only have an electrical example, but I'm happy to share it with you. You can see what it looks like. Estimating turnover agenda, pre-construction planning meeting agenda, exit strategy, lessons learned. It's all in a workbook. It's Excel. I hate Excel. It's in Excel, but use it as a guideline to create your own outline, right? What'd y'all take out of today? I'm not used to this small of a group. It's like throwing me off. I was at the NECA National Convention, last week, and there was 10,000 people at convention, and one of my speaking things had like, 2,200 people in it, and it was a little, I'm thrown off. It's a small group. Don't know how to act.
The one takeaway I have is that your energy.
My energy. I've always had way too much energy for my own good.
And I know you blow off on some lot. You're distributing your energy out.
Yeah.
But I've really appreciated your values because there's two things I've learned being around you yesterday and today. I know what I'm doing right, and I know what I need to improve.
Yeah.
And so that my takeaway is it's like my notes tell me. There's different things that I want to improve on.
Right.
The day-to-day collaboration with my team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel like that I'm intimidated. I feel like that I'm bugging them. I feel, no. If that's where I'm at, I need to up-level my conversation.
Yes. Can I give you guys a really big hint that I've been doing with I don't do a lot of executive coaching anymore, though I love it. As leaders, most of your sentences should not end in periods. Most of your sentences should end in question marks.
That's been one of my intimidating problems.
Yes. But the way to flip that right now is change the periods to question marks. Hey, what do you guys need? Is there anything going on in that job that I can help you guys with? Is there some customer interface you want me to play, here? Would that help you? Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. Do we need better, are there some tools we need that would make this more efficient? Are we choosing the right materials to do this kind of question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark? Why? Because get rid of the dictatorship model, create the engagement model. The only difference between those things is question mark versus period. That's it. That's it, guys. It's that freaking simple. Now you don't need to hire me for $6,000 a day. Aren't you glad? Although I don't even do that work anymore. But. Mm-hmm.
You kind of reassured me that my ideas are.
You're there.
They're the right ideas.
Yeah.
Like I've heard, overthink it.
No.
You plan too much. It works.
Because it works.
I know it works.
Yeah.
I know it's going to work.
It absolutely works. Yeah, it absolutely works. Even if it's a one-day job, guys, tools, information, material, manpower, scheduled correctly. Do not have them go out there and then figure out what they need and they only have 75% of it, because then we're going to have to jump through hoops to solve that thing by the end of the day. We just set ourselves up to fail. True statement? We can't do that. We're here to make money. There's nothing wrong with a contractor being highly profitable. There's nothing wrong. Oh, by the way, if I asked your field folks how much profit we make, what kind of answers do y'all think I get? When I ask your field, no. I wish it was zero. That would cause behavior I'd be okay with. You know what your field folks and even your junior PM staff tell me? They're like, Steph, they got to be knocking down 30, 40 points or they wouldn't be doing this. And I try not to laugh in their face. I have to consciously tell myself not to laugh when they say that. But if they truly think we're making 30 or 40 points, what kind of behavior do you think that's causing? They're not looking for waste. They're not looking to be lean because they think there's this big slush fund sitting over here that doesn't exist. True statement? We got to be really honest with people about what that is and engage them in increasing it.
You know what? We got this project
Yeah.
by negotiation.
Yeah.
And I know you guys want all the money you can make.
Yeah.
But there's some things that have to happen.
Yep.
For you to get that.
That's correct. That's what incentive comp is for. Or gain share if it's field side. Field side incentives are called gain share. Project management incentives are incentive compensation. They're driven by different things with different data, but they're both highly effective. Anything else? Okay, that's all I got. I have cards up here if anybody wants my email address.